Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky and Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers tried to move Russell Westbrook to the bench, at least for a day, and didn't get a really good look at it. But is this a sign of things to come? That's next on Locked On Lakers.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. Andy, it's always free. It's never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you go to see the show. Often you can catch it on YouTube a few hours before the audio product goes up. So if you got to get that Jones, you satisfy it with the YouTube channel. And make another Locked On podcast your second listen of every day, but of course only after making us your first. And if you want to listen to us twice on a different device, that's also acceptable. Go to over a friend's house or something like that.
No, just use your burner.
I don't want to tell people how to use their burners, but yes, you should probably get a burner just
that's how Kevin Durant listens to us.
Presumably. Okay, so the preseason is over. We are 1 day away from the start of the regular season. The preseason sort of ended with a bit of a thud. It was not as uplifting as the first few games was. We'll get into that, but the big news of Friday's finale was the attempt, at least, to bring Russell Westbrook off the bench. Obviously didn't get very far because Westbrook left in the first quarter with a hamstring injury, did not return. He is considered day-to-day, maybe available for Tuesday's game.
He's expected to be available. I think the general consensus is, coming out of Sunday's practice, Darvin Ham's comments, they expect him to be available. It's not a given. And over the course of the show, we'll get in some of the other health updates that came out of practice. But it sounds like they will be more surprised if Westbrook isn't available than if he is. The MRI showed no actual damage or anything like that to that left hamstring. He was walking out of the game gingerly, but under his own power. And it seemed like something that he could have played through if the game actually mattered.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, obviously hamstrings for somebody whose game is built on speed and presumably explosiveness. You got to be careful with it. And I know people will mock, but as long as he's around, you got to keep him healthy. I mean, an injured Westbrook is worse than a regular one.
Well, okay, this is how bad things have gotten in terms of Laker fans' relationship and, I guess, purview with Russell Westbrook. There was actually, I saw a decent amount of Lakers Twitter chatter that Westbrook may have been faking this as a way of protesting coming off the bench. This was Russ's passive-aggressive way of saying, I'm not doing this, and 5 minutes into the game,
my arm.
Exactly. Pulling the fake hand. Like, guys, no.
It hurt.
No, let me put it this way. If you think Russ is going to be that big of a pain in the ass when it comes to not coming off the bench, I'll say this right now. He is going to be an in-your-face pain in the ass. He's not going to be a passive-aggressive pain in the ass.
Not Russ, that. There will be some passive aggressiveness, I'm sure, but it won't be that deep. It won't be like I'm just going to fake a hamstring injury in protest. But there were fans who were disappointed at the news that he'd be available for Tuesday's game. And to some degree, I get the petty. I'm even here for the petty, even if I don't agree with the petty. I can still find it entertaining, but it kind of brings up how complicated a lot of this is. And I think first and foremost, for starters, no pun intended, the Lakers were really smart to have at least one attempt at a dress rehearsal with this. They effectively ripped the Band-Aid off in the preseason. So whether Westbrook is available and starts on Tuesday, or he comes off the bench and maybe they use the hamstring as an excuse. He's still a little tender, whatever it is. Because they set the precedent that they're willing to try it and do it in the preseason, it will make it easier if this is what they want to do going forward. I kind of get the impression it is, but that part was really smart to say we're going to do this in the preseason.
I agree. I really wish, though, that for a variety of reasons that he had been able to actually play a full game doing this.
Oh, completely.
But in terms of the Band-Aid getting ripped off, I think the Band-Aid got partially ripped off because it was such an incomplete conclusion. Like, in terms of, does this actually work? Does Russ actually experience this and say, you know what? As much as I hate doing this for reasons ranging from, stature to ego to Russ is maybe the most OCD player in the entire NBA and is a creature of habit who wants to start because that's the way his body is wired.
He's never come off the bench. This is
not since his rookie year.
Maybe he did in his rookie year.
He did in his rookie year, but not many games. It's been a long time.
That was a while ago.
But and also too for Darvin Ham to actually get a look at how things operate without Russ in that starting lineup, where he may realize, you know what, it's a really awkward, bad fit. But guess what? The starting lineup actually operates worse without Russ. Like all these different bits of information, buy-in, enthusiasm, whatever, that you could have gotten from this thing if Russ had played 20 to 25 minutes. Again, it feels like a Band-Aid partially ripped off, but then put back on.
I disagree a little bit because I think this is an experiment in two parts. And they are the first, and I think the most important part of it is, we'll do it, is making the move of Russell Westbrook. The precedent is set for Russell that we are willing to try or do or play Westbrook off the bench. That's step one, and I think is to some degree the harder one, in terms of whether you want to think about the politics, whether you want to think about whatever word you wanted to describe it. You have to be the pulling the trigger on that is step one. Step two, does it work? Completely agree. They got zero information about that. He checked in at the 7:22 in the first quarter. It makes and obviously he was done by the end of the quarter. And so you did not see much. On paper, it makes sense. Because it's not so much LeBron and AD Westbrook and AD that's the problem. It's Westbrook and LeBron that really don't fit well together, because Westbrook doesn't provide a whole lot when LeBron has the ball. LeBron provides Westbrook stuff when he does, but I want LeBron to have the ball more. It makes sense to have him come off the bench where he has. It's not so much about quarterbacking the second unit as how it's been described, as just, can he play fewer minutes with LeBron? How do you set up it so he plays fewer minutes next to LeBron? And that is the easiest way to do it. So I agree.
It's also too, I think, easier to come up with lineups that actually play more to Russ's strengths.
Right. Like you can put the shooters around Russ instead of either making LeBron into a spot up guy or trying to use Westbrook as a shooter somehow, which is a terrible idea.
There's just so much information that they were, like we talked about, that they were looking to get from this last preseason game that, they were making this very bold move that, again, requires a lot of buy-in and enthusiasm, and in certain ways like salesmanship. And some of that is going to come from the actual results, and, which in turn might juice Russ's enthusiasm for this, or at least make
it would have been better. The best outcome for the Lakers, and I have a couple more things we want to go through, do it after the break, but it would have been better have they had a great, went really well. Russ had 16 points off the bench in 21 minutes or whatever. Didn't see it. But I'm very curious as your opinion as to whether or not you think they actually keep it this way going forward, to some of the medical updates that we got on Sunday regarding Dennis Schroeder, Lonnie Walker, and some of the other guys impact that. So we'll get to all of it next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Rocket Money. Are you wasting money on subscriptions? If so, friendo, you are not alone. 80% of people have subscriptions that they forget about. Maybe it's an unused Amazon Prime account, like everybody in your family opened
$30
one.
a month for Blockbuster. Should I be doing that?
No, you should not be doing that. And I'll tell you right now, your credit card company, Brian, they're not going to say word one. They're counting on a moron like you to just continue paying them. But that's why I use a great app that helps me track all my expenses. And because of it, I don't waste money on subscriptions like Blockbuster that I don't even use, that don't even
companies.
Right, that don't even exist. Like, you may have heard of it. It's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. And the app shows you all of your subscriptions in one place and cancels what you don't want for you. Like, Rocket Money may find the subscriptions you didn't know that you were even paying for. Like, again, Blockbuster might find out you've been double charged for Blockbuster. Rocket Money will handle that for you. All you do is just press cancel at that Blockbuster, and Rocket Money takes care of all the rest. Cancel unnecessary subscriptions with Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked on. Could save you hundreds per year. That is rocketmoney.com/locked on.
Andy, do you think Tuesday Russell Westbrook starts? Let's assume Westbrook's healthy, available to play, no restrictions, all of that. Does Westbrook start?
I think he's going to come off the bench. And
so do I.
I feel like if you were going to open this door at all, like we've talked about this in the past, that if you're going to do it, you want to try to do it as early as possible, but also too in a way that feels, I think, less of a deal. You know what I mean? Like,
also less of a demotion. If you do it at the beginning, it doesn't feel like, wasn't working with Russ in the starting lineup. You can always put him back in, but it's harder to take him out.
You know what it was? It was a realignment. That's what Darvin Ham told us.
No, it wasn't a demotion. It was a realignment.
Right. It was very Gwyneth Paltrow, Chris Martin, conscious uncoupling.
Right.
Like, it was a very goop way
Similar
of
how we've been
realigned
this from many, many media jobs over the course of our lives.
Yes, we have. But they were actually never demotions. They were actually not demotions. Just a lot of realignments. But I feel like you want to try to do this in a way that feels as unceremonious as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And having opened that door during the preseason, and also the preseason we're going to discuss this, getting increasingly
worse as it went along.
Yeah. You can actually, I mean, while that's obviously not what you want to happen, you can use that as an overarching explanation of something you need to do that frankly isn't even about Russ. It's about the whole team.
Yep.
Like, this is why Russ needed to be realigned. It's not because of Russ. It's because just we're seeing that these different floor combinations don't work, or the floor combinations that we need will take place better with Russ realigned off the bench.
It's an interesting dynamic. And like, there are all kinds of ways you can try to figure, well, if you do it on the opening night, it's ring night, it's this, that, it's going to be a huge story. Russell, it's true, but I'm not sure.
It's a huge story no matter when you do.
Right. And, if you look at when the Lakers could try to sneak this one in, I mean, okay, the first game is a TNT game against Golden State. The second game is a TNT game, home opener against the Clippers. That's even worse, because then it's like the starting lineup in front of the home fans. You've yanked them out for that. It's like, there's no good time to do this. Maybe you slide it in the third game of the year, the 12:30 game on Sunday against Portland.
The Lakers neither slide nor sneak anything. In their entire existence.
You either do it or you do not. And I feel like, and then, one of the things, I know one of the health updates we were going to get to is Dennis Schroeder, who is going to undergo further evaluation for that injured thumb, and is not going to be available for the opener. And so
he's listed right now as day-to-day, but it feels like these days could be very long. They're like, remember in the movie Insomnia, when Al Pacino, he plays this detective who gets sent to Alaska to investigate a murder, and he goes crazy because it's during this period where there are no sunsets. It's just all sunlight for 24 hours a day, and he's like losing his mind.
Schroeder can't be day to day if the day never changes.
Right.
If it's just day.
It feels like it's going to be that type of day to day for Schroeder. It sounds like they're counting on him being out at least a few weeks.
To some degree, that also is a good opportunity to do it because you can slide him into the bench. You can slide Westbrook onto the bench full with the understanding that there's another 18 minutes a game or whatever Schroeder was going to play that's available to spread around, and you can give him a quality run that doesn't make him feel like an afterthought in that opening couple of games, and take advantage of the Schroeder injury. Again, you can always put him back into the starting lineup if things don't go the way you want them to go. If it doesn't look right, if the bench
can be the rationale. It could be, we need a point guard off the bench. Dennis Schroeder isn't available. We need Russ for this. Then a couple weeks from now, hey, you know what? This is working.
It's just working. So
it's the way we're going to keep it.
It's just, but I do agree with you, Andy, that I feel like this is ultimately what they want to do. And Russ doesn't have tons of leverage here. It's not like, he can pout and fake a hamstring and walk off the court if he wants, but short of doing something like
which
that,
we don't think he was doing.
He didn't
again.
He didn't do that. But like short of that, he's got to smile his way through it, because
what's he going to do? Demand a trade? Way ahead of you, buddy. We're looking around.
You want to show that, all of the stuff people are saying about you and the mean things and this and that, whatever, are incorrect and unfair. Well, okay. Probably the best way to do that is to not get, sent home on the third day of the season. And so like, he has strong incentives to play along. And I think that he will. And if you're going to make the move, if your inclination is to make the move, better to do it early than late. When they're struggling and you move Russ to the bench and it looks like Russ is the scapegoat, because look, this schedule is brutal to start the year. It is incredibly challenging. They have Golden State. They have the Clippers. They host Portland, which is not a gimme game. Go look at the Blazers roster. They're not a top 5 team in the West, but they're not the disaster they were last year either. They're young, they're athletic, they've got some players. That's not an easy game. You go at Denver, at Minnesota, and then home against Denver. Then you got New Orleans. It's not until you get to Utah in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh game of the season that you have anything that looks like a gimme game. Those are 7 play-in or playoff teams to start the season. If you're 2-5 and then you put Russ on the bench, it looks like you're blaming Russ.
Right. Yeah.
And I hope they're not 2-5, by the way, but they could be. And they could play well and be 3-4 or 2-5. I don't know.
For a whole bunch of reasons. It's just, again, like we've talked about in terms of doing this. There were the small p political reasons that you would look to start the season with Russ, because it seemed like the simplest thing to do. It's assuming things were going well enough on a variety of counts. Like you would look to try to make it work, because that's just the easiest way to do this. But if you are at all thinking this is inevitably where it's going to go, because it's not going to work,
or you just feel very strongly that it's the thing that must happen, that needs to happen.
Right. This is the best time to do it now. I'm going to get into this in terms of the overarching view of the preseason, but just a few more health updates. Anthony Davis practiced on Sunday. Darvin Ham said he's going to be available on Tuesday. They do not anticipate any restrictions for him, any minutes limit, anything like that. They're expecting AD to look like AD, operate like AD.
I don't like being told that Anthony Davis doesn't have a minutes restriction before opening night.
Sure, but just...
it beats the alternative, but
right. Well, since he had not been playing in that final preseason game after the expectation that he would, because the Lakers were looking to treat those last 2 preseason games like real run-ups to the actual regular season. This was not a planned rest day for Anthony Davis.
It was not.
Lonnie Walker also practiced, and he is expected to be available on Tuesday. My guess is he'll be starting. Troy Brown is still, I think, a couple weeks off. So he seems to be the only projected guy in the rotation that won't be available.
Thoughts on the preseason? It's over. Felt really good about it early. How do you feel about it now? That's next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net, your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all the latest football league matchups, developments, news, podcasts. BetOnline is your continued source also for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest, easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. But, of course, the NBA, the season kicking off. Two interesting lines I saw. First of all, LeBron 66-1 from BetOnline to lead the league in assists. That feels like a really generous line. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you're looking for good payouts for a possibility that is not far-fetched, LeBron 66-1 to lead the league in assists.
That ain't bad.
That's intriguing to me. He's also currently, LeBron, 14-1 to lead the league in scoring, 6th overall. I guess the folks at BetOnline picturing him more focused on Kareem's record than setting up teammates. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device. Learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline when the game starts.
Okay, so the Lakers did not go winless in the preseason, so that's good news. They didn't win a lot, though. They only won one of the 6 tries. They had 6 tries to win games. They only won one of them. You and I noted before the season, yeah, it's Kono shame, Tad. It doesn't necessarily matter if they win a lot of games. It's the preseason. The record it matters how they look particularly when the important players are playing. It matters what do they get out of it in terms of continuity, in terms of putting together, it's a brand new team. It's a brand new team last year. They blew off the preseason. It didn't go well. It's a brand new team this year. They didn't blow off the preseason this year, but did they get enough out of it to try to maximize their ability to hit the ground running? Again, I showed everybody the first 7 games of the season. It is brutal. You get a couple games against Utah smashed in there, but the first month is just really hard. Even the Jazz will be better at the beginning of the year than they will be at the end when they're fully in the tank for Scoot or the what's his face, Victor
Wembanyama. Too many M's. Too many M's.
I call him V-Wham. I don't call him that. I don't really call him anything. I call him the Lakers can't get him, so it doesn't really matter. I wish, I don't think they necessarily tried to do it this way, but I really wish they could have gotten more out of this preseason than they ultimately did.
Yeah, it really, I have to say the first 3 or 4 games of the season, Brian, I was very cautiously optimistic about what was going on. Yeah, because when the guys who mattered played, the Lakers generally won those minutes. I don't think
they look good.
I don't think they were ever dominant, but they generally controlled games. And there were times where Russ, I thought, even looked, for all the focus on Russell Westbrook and, the dissection to death of his play, I thought there were times where he looked really good. LeBron and AD were often flat out dominant. You saw really good moments from Kendrick Nunn. You saw really good moments from Lonnie Walker. You saw utility from guys like Juan Toscano-Anderson. I think they looked like a team that you could picture with more reps gelling into a cohesive unit. Maybe not with the highest ceiling of the elites in the league, but a team that looked like they were going to be considerably more
potentially more competent than they were being given credit for.
And, when there was the game where, Russ, LeBron, AD, Patrick Beverly, Kendrick Nunn, a bunch of guys didn't play. It was okay, we're given the olds and Kendrick Nunn, who's still ramping himself up from missing an entire season, giving them a designated night off. That's fine. Then the last few games of the preseason, you had Anthony Davis kind of last minute getting pulled out of 2 games. You had Westbrook looking a little more awkward as things went along. You had Lonnie
because
Walker.
I disagree. Like, I thought he looked really good. I mean, there are moments where he looked really good, but I do agree that he looked less in the way in the first couple games, first half of the preseason than he did as it went along.
Right. You had Lonnie Walker coming back from injury, then having to sit a game. Like, Kendrick Nunn cooled off. Like, we mentioned Matt Ryan, and, as much as congratulations to G League Matty Ice for staying with the team, like, the fact that he was out there in ways that didn't always feel like, hey, let's get a look at this guy as, holy bleep, we need somebody to hit some damn outside shots.
Right. It's an indication that the shooting really did not pick up. They had one game where they shot the three ball well.
And the last couple games when they really had planned to start ramping up towards, true dress rehearsals is when they A, looked the worst, and B, didn't have the regulars there for, health reasons, availability reasons, things like that. It ended the thing on a depressing and maybe even a little bit ominous note. Like, I have to say, I started out this preseason feeling a lot better than I do right now.
I don't know what any of this means in terms of like how it translates to the regular season. I wanted to feel a little better, though, about their chances to surprise than I do. Like, I ultimately kind of feel like the forecasts are okay, probably about right. I can see where the blueprint is for them to surprise. And it starts with a healthy Anthony Davis playing like he did in the games that he played. And if you're looking for a highlight of the preseason, for me, absolutely 100% was I never worried about LeBron. LeBron's gonna be fine. I was 100% the quality of the play from Anthony Davis. Absolutely, hands down, to me, was, I thought, the highlight of the preseason for the Lakers. I get that they're being hyper cautious, and you don't. If there's even a hint of something with the guy's back in the sit him down. I get it. I still don't feel good about it. Like, the fact that you have to do it doesn't make me feel good. And the fact that that they had to do it because it wasn't Anthony Davis isn't going to play tonight. We tell you this on Tuesday for Friday's game. It was, we're going to tell you 15 minutes before the game starts, including the game in against Phoenix in Vegas, where the whole point of the thing, the whole layout was to look at that small lineup with Anthony Davis, playing the five and being available for that. And so,
it's always just something with AD. With health, it's always something. Like, it does not feel like, hey, he's a veteran, he's a champion, he's an all-star caliber player. He doesn't need the preseason to get reps in the way some other players do. Like, you don't want to burn any miles whatsoever unnecessarily. It's never going to feel like that with AD. If it,
because because it's not that.
Right. A slight back tweak is never going to feel like, you know what? He slept weird, whatever. It's not a big deal. It's going to feel like, holy crap, what's coming next?
Here we go. And so, I like that. I liked Kendrick Nunn. I thought, you saw exactly, it wasn't perfect every game, but you can't expect Kendrick Nunn to be a, 18 point a night guy it's not going to be like that. But, like, you saw what he could do. And hey, let me ask you this before, because I meant to, when we're talking about Anthony Davis, we can quit here because we're going to get more, obviously much more into what we think is going to come both on Tuesday night and throughout the season for Tuesday's show. I also think the Lakers are inclined to play small. I think they want to put AD at the 5. I think that's the lineup they want to run with. Do you think it is, Schroeder's injury, the combination of Schroeder's injury and, their inclinations to use Westbrook as a bench player, which I definitely think, does any of this get complicated with, Schroeder being unavailable and wanting to start AD at the 5 and go small? Like, do you think that impacts it? Like, Russ,
they've got like 9 guards on the roster. So
I'm just asking.
No, I mean, I don't
have
see
other
why
choices, but
I don't see why it would complicate anything.
Okay.
If anything, I think Schroeder being out, however much you think Schroeder helps them from a talent perspective, then obviously it hurts them because he's not there. From a complications perspective,
the only reason I ask is because they are doing two things in theory that are changes from, I guess, the status quo. We're going to start the season with Anthony Davis at the 5. We're going to start the season with Russell Westbrook on the bench. I don't know if they're going to do either one of those things, but if they wanted to do both at the same time, it just occurred to me as we were talking, does one potentially complicate the other? I think you're right. It doesn't.
I don't think one has a thing to do with the other.
Okay, good. I think most fans would be happy to hear that. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you go to see the show and get it a little bit earlier than everyone else who is just trying to listen to it. We will be back Tuesday. It's the season opener, Andy. It is very exciting. We're going to have all kinds of predictions and thoughts about where this year is going to go. Many of which hopefully you will forget about before we get to the end of the year. But we will remind you about all the things that we say that are absolutely correct many times throughout the year. Thanks for everybody for joining in, and we'll see everybody on Tuesday.